All right. Hello, everyone. I know that there's been a little break from my introduction on Instagram about the podcast, but we finally actually got this going off the ground. And Zoom is actually making this very achievable. So I am Patrick Inicio, if you guys do remember. I am currently a senior at Creighton University and a fourth year brother of Sigma Lambda Beta, or about to complete my third year of Sigma Lambda Beta. And so my major is exercise science, and I'm planning to attend physical therapy school next year. I'm not really sure like where I'll end up with that, but wherever I get into, or I guess the best school that I get into is where I'll go. And why I chose SLB, there were like multiple reasons why I joined, but the main reason was that there was an underrepresentation of minorities on campus at Creighton when I was a freshman, and I felt not necessarily calling, but a propensity. There we go. A propensity to actually do something about it myself. And it didn't really have to be major impacts or anything. I just wanted to actually put in some effort into making Creighton a more inclusive and diverse space on like inside not only campus but Nebraska. And so I think SLB, it has a very important spot on campus because we are, not right anymore, but we were the only multicultural fraternity on campus. And not a lot of people understood what that was. And we received a lot of backlash and derision from other people on campus because no one really understood what we actually stood for, what our mission was. So SLB's importance exists in educating people why we exist, and also exposing them to our own cultures and our own experiences, which aren't necessarily heard on campus. So with that, I'll turn it over to Russell or Grayson. Well, all right, we'll go to Grayson first.
Sorry.
How's it going? My name is Grayson Holden, from Beverly Hills, Michigan. Junior here at Creighton, studying chemistry, theology, with a minor in legal studies. Probably I'll go get a PhD in chemistry and a law degree at some point to do IP law. I'll figure that out, but for some reason I don't think I'm done with school after these 4 years. I joined SLB because it was honestly the nicest group of guys that I met going through recruitment. Just really chill, really relaxed, like a good feeling for me. I thought it'd be a good fit. I think SLB's role on campus is a unique one. I think we kind of serve as to say you can be something different, and that's good. We're one of the smallest fraternities, but I'd say we're the tightest fraternity. So I think we serve it as an example of fraternities on how to be a tight-knit brotherhood. I also think we bring a perspective because each of us comes from a completely different environment that a lot of fraternities should model on our diverse perspective ideas. But yeah, I'm Grayson, and looking forward to doing this podcast.
And then I'm Russell. I'm a senior here at Creighton University. I'm a bio major on the pre-dental track. And so after graduating, I'll probably take a year off and then apply to dental school. For me, I chose Sigma Lambda Beta because I felt the most welcome and the most accepted here. I was free to be myself, and if I needed support and just a place to relax and a place to feel brotherhood, I knew I could count on the brothers to provide that for me. And then also it was refreshing to see how much the brothers that I had met during recruitment embraced their cultures. And I thought that that wasn't really something I had seen much on Creighton yet. And so I was excited to learn more. And for me personally, Sigma Lambda Beta is just was like an avenue for me to explore my culture and the cultures of other brothers. And then we could also use our experiences to share our upbringing with others on Creighton's campus. And then going into that, the role that Sigma Lambda Beta plays on campus is just to kind of like open the eyes of Creighton students and staff and whoever else may be guests on Creighton's campus to some of our experiences and some of the experiences of other minorities. I feel like it gets overused a lot, but I want to say it's a safe space. Yeah. And with that, Efren.
So, my name is Efren Garcia. I'm a fifth-year senior. I'm majoring in psychology. I'm also minoring in Spanish and biology, with plans to do a master's in public health. Where? I'm not sure yet. Hopefully Arizona. We'll see. But I'm also pre-med, so I definitely have a long journey ahead of me. But why SLB? I really value SLB because, to me, I never even considered a fraternity going into Creighton. I had no interest at all, but I knew some friends, some of the mentors I had met had mentioned to me that they were in the making of creating the first multicultural fraternity on Creighton's campus. And so to me, I really value my culture and my background, and I found it hard to kind of embrace that at Creighton. But with this fraternity coming, that celebrated cultures, I felt really lucky to kind of like feel like I came in the right time, right moment, you know. And so I became part of like Alpha Line, and that was that. You know, I felt like to me, it was the closest to home that I could get, and I created a new home, and I really value SLB for that. And so I hope to continue bringing that for other students who may come and feel that need to find a home, you know, because for everyone, Creighton is, or not Creighton, but overall college is always a new and scary experience for a lot of people. And I think having that potential to have like a home that celebrates whoever you are, whatever background you come from, it's very nice to have. And so I think that's the importance of SLB on Creighton's campus.
All right, so one brother is actually missing. His name is Alejandro Tavares. He's currently busy. So I guess a short background, let him introduce himself whenever he pops on. But like, he's in the business school. He's from Chicago. Yeah, I'll let him do the rest. So for you guys, the audience, we want this to actually be an open conversation with you guys. So feel free to comment or hit us up individually. You know our names. You see Grayson's on the computer, but Efren, Russell, Patrick. You'll probably find us on social media, also on our Instagram or Facebook. So feel free to reach out. And also, we'll be open to taking guests onto this podcast as well. We'll have alums from our chapter, but also if someone wants or has a strong desire to join this podcast and talk about their own experiences with certain things, we'll be open to having you on this podcast as well. So with that, we're going to go into our main topic of discussion today, as we were talking about how Creighton or Sigma Lambda Beta operates on campus. We're going to talk about the issues that are affecting Creighton directly. And so with that, that includes the die-in that Kwasa hosted, and also the protests that have been going on around campus. So my own personal feelings about that, I do think that Creighton's moving in the right direction with, I guess, I wouldn't say advertising, but advocating for these things by giving them resources and allowing them to do this, especially in the times of the COVID pandemic, where it's very hard to get an event that's in person approved. And even Father Hendrickson, our university president, he's been showing up to these things, and they've been having camera crews taking pictures and filming as well. So I do think that Creighton's moving in the right direction. Obviously there is room for them to grow and room for them to actually offer more support to these types of situations and to minority organizations. But I know this might be a little bad to say, but baby steps are often the best move to actually form progress, because it doesn't put everything on your plate all at once. So just by Father Hendrickson showing up and giving support to these causes, I feel like it not only provides a good image for Creighton, but it makes the organizations who are hosting these events, or organizations who want to have these types of events, it makes them feel comfortable to actually have voices on campus. And it shows that administration is behind you, and even though there will be dissent around campus about these certain events, you will always have support of the administration to back you. So you don't necessarily need the approval of everyone, but you need the approval of the people who count. And
I was actually surprised at how quickly they were able to organize the die-in, because like it was relatively recent, and then all of a sudden posters start going out, and then a couple days later, like the actual die-in happens. And so it's cool to see that administration is willing and able to be flexible, just to address these hot button topics quickly.
Yeah, I was gonna say, even like the way that they embrace it, like on social media and elsewhere, I find that also pretty surprising and awesome that Creighton is going out of their way to do that. And you get even more surprised when you read like some of the comments that are underneath. Like they definitely get a lot of criticism from a lot of people, and it's interesting to read. Pretty hateful comments.
What did some of these comments say?
So like on, for example, what was it? It was KTV Newswatch 7 that like posted like an article about how Creighton, did what they did, or students of Quasa did this, and it was a really positive like headline, absolutely, and really eye-opening. Creighton students organized die-in demonstration. And then the first comment that I see is, did they happen to swallow fentanyl before they did this? To really understand, they need to see the effects it has on the respiratory system. I get it. It's sad. We lost someone, especially in the hands of public service officials. There's a lot of other ones. They're just like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know about that. I don't know about that comment. There's just a lot of other ones that were like really just criticizing like the value of doing it and whatnot.
Yeah, I saw something similar. I mean, it's sad because at the one time, Creighton's a Jesuit school and was supposed to support social justice missions of the society, and the society's trying to do stuff on racism. It's hard to do in the church because people don't want to move on it as much as we need to. But I mean, just reading some comments that it's outside of Creighton's purview. I know on one article I saw there was someone saying, just shows it's radical university. I'm like, wait a minute here. People are dying. We don't want people to die. That doesn't seem that radical to me. I mean, but then again, I've also seen a lot of alums who are really proud Creighton alums that Creighton's posting this and doing this, which is really good. Because if you can get alum support, student support, faculty support, then you're in great shape. But I've both been encouraged and saddened by the mixed results that I've seen in terms of comments to the different things that Creighton's done.
Yeah. The sad thing is, it shouldn't have to come down to whether it's radical or liberal. Like, really, if you look at it, it should just be a human issue. Someone died who probably didn't deserve it, didn't deserve it. And then immediately there's people on the internet like saying, oh, it's just some radical university. Like, they're not even looking at the heart of the issue, which makes me a little bit unsettled.
Yeah, there is no space for this type of criticism, especially for a cause that is trying to do good and trying to raise awareness. And the bad thing about it is that like we have to address it, and there's no real way to actually get rid of it. There will always be an opposing side. There will always be someone who's not agreeing with whatever you do. And this will be for like, honestly, whatever thing you do decide to do. It doesn't even have to be about social justice. And even with your good intentions, people will always decide to disagree with it for whatever reason. And it's kind of hard to say that there is a chance to get rid of this ignorance and uneducation, but I feel like this problem is just so systematically ingrained in American society that there is no real way to actually stomp it out. It's just like, it's hard to think that you can't really make the situation like completely gone. That's just how I feel about it.
And all of this came to the forefront of American society because of the murder of George Floyd. And it was amazing to, like, in my head, I was seeing like, okay, the video is crystal clear. There's no way to dispute this. Like, what's happening on the video is like super clear. It's wrong. and still somehow people are finding ways to like twist and interpret, like, oh, maybe he was guilty for something else, or like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to cope with these types of emotions a lot of times because you do feel like you are right, especially when it comes to human lives. But that's just like the reality we have to deal with and the reality we're trying to fix. And it's hard to actually come up with a way to effectively solve these problems because I'm sure everyone has seen on social media like people criticizing the protests or even criticizing like the who played the Chiefs week 1? Chiefs and Texans.
Houston.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when the Chiefs and Texans played in Kansas City and they decided to stand together in midfield in solidarity for equality and end the racism, they got booed for that. No national anthem. Yeah,
Were there fans?
yeah, there were fans inside the stadium in Arrowhead.
Jeez.
Yeah, so they got booed for that. They're not even kneeling, no national anthem. They just got booed for wanting to end racism. So it's a lot of people don't educate themselves on these situations and they make themselves look ignorant, and there's no way to educate them on this because they want to learn. And ignoring these types of people is not, I would say, difficult and also impossible, because if they just continue to remain ignorant and remain uneducated and not want to learn, then it will just set further generations back and hurt the US in the future. Like the Department of Homeland Security actually declared white supremacist groups as the greatest threat to American safety. Like
Really?
they declared that, yeah.
Wow.
So it's not even a foreign power. It's white supremacist groups. And they said that, I think I read that, they're expecting a civil war to break out in 2030. I don't think that'll happen because that's extremely radical. And I don't, like, honestly, it takes a lot for people to go into a civil war. But it just shows you that even though realizes that there's a really big issue with this country and that needs to be addressed.
I mean, seeing the right, like, all across the United States, like, honestly, like, I wouldn't have been surprised if America was thrown into a civil war earlier this year.
Yeah, my background is I studied in Northern Ireland for a little while. So when I see officer-involved shootings, when I see people saying that someone's wrong just because of who they are, what they support, I get nervous because Northern Ireland shot people for 30 years with the IRA, the UDA, the Royal Ulster, the RUC, the police force over there. And it really just started as people saying something's wrong, and the people in power saying, "Yeah, we're not going to change. We're going to fight instead." So I get worried when people are like you see what happened in Kenosha with that 17-year-old guy who's like, "I'm not going to take this. I'm going to go grab my AR-15 and I'm going to go enforce the law myself." And now he ended up shooting people. I mean, if we get too much of that, what's stopping us from going to a Northern Ireland situation where we have the troubles?
Yeah, that's true too. Americans do have a very strong sense of independence. I can say I've seen this for maybe in my conscious life, maybe 5 years, because I won't say that I realized this as a child because that's just straight up impossible. But Americans do have this weird sense of retaliation, and I'm not really sure why this is. It's probably history of just wars and fighting for freedom, and then it just becomes skewed in the sense that they think that freedom means that they're always correct about everything they say.
I think there's a hard line, or like Americans have blurred the line between freedom and independence. And I think like our ancestors fought for freedom, as in like not oppressing our rights. And people today interpret that as independence to do what they want and enforce what they want, even if that means violently or like outside the lines of what should typically be acceptable.
And in a country that has probably the most guns in any country in the world, that idea, that can get deadly real quick. I know
Yeah.
there's a guy who went to my high school, just got into an argument with a guy after a meal. One of them had a gun and got shot and killed just because of over an argument. Neither of them wanted to admit they were wrong, and it led to violence. So that's something I worry about daily is, are we driving ourselves to the point where people may turn to violence? And how would we react if we see someone turn to violence? What would we do? Would we immediately condemn it, or would we try to explain it away?
I don't know. It's crazy to think about like how our country or like how countries work, or the problems within countries. Because I feel like for a long time, growing up, I felt like we lived in such a I don't know. I guess we grow up from an innocent kind of like perspective, like, oh, like this country's not bad, or like we're living in like one of the best countries, this and that. We get that patriotism through like media or like through whatever that we see through our textbooks. Through our systematically, we feel like I feel like patriotism sometimes comes with like through our education system, through a lot of things. Like a lot of things are always like omitted from like history textbooks about what the U.S. has done wrong, this and that. And I guess maybe it's part of growing up when you notice more and more of like what is wrong with the U.S. I guess, and I think that's a privilege to even say. I feel like growing up, I'd even my parents are immigrants, and I feel like I didn't really know what their experiences were, fully growing up, because they kind of hit a lot, and I didn't really know as much. Neither did they. They don't know much about law, but as I grew up and learned more, I feel like I have a much more bigger grasp of that. And I guess I'm like, it's crazy to think about like our perception of like our country, like our current issues and where it can go. And I feel like it's crazy to think that we're not going through what other countries go through, like where you have like actual explosions, actual warfare, I don't know. And that's crazy to me.
Yeah, so my parents are from the Philippines, and they actually lived through martial law there. When the president at the time, when they were young adults, he declared martial law because the rest of the country wanted him out of power, and they actually lived through that. And that's like basically the culmination of years of tension, years of stress, and years of incompetent leadership. And so I can say for a fact that it is very possible for, I guess, the people in power to run rampant with it. And I honestly do feel like it's really not that far away if we keep down the path we're keeping. And you could kind of see that in the Philippines right now with their current president, Rodrigo Duterte. He's supposed to come out of power this year, I think. And people are kind of scared what will happen in the turnover of power. Like, I don't think people are expecting martial law, but people are scared about what will actually happen with the government after he does leave. Because there is a lot of corruption that goes on in any society, but especially in the Philippines. Like, my cousin gave me a rant about this because she's from the Philippines, and there is a lot of fear about what will happen in a couple months, as and like is the case here as well.
That is pretty scary. Yeah. We live in crazy times, but I definitely feel like we definitely have a voice, like compared to how worse it could be, like the worst scenario of like, like a society collapsing. We're not that well off, but we're not that bad off either.
I think our political system, like our government, is pretty well set up just with the Constitution, just in that there's so many layers and checks and balances that influence the power. But I think over the past 100-some years, like there have been like slight twists or like corruptions or loopholes and misinterpretations that have made it even harder for change to actually occur, like positive change. And so, go ahead.
It's interesting if you look at the major legislative bills that were passed. The last big one was the Affordable Care Act, passed in President Obama's term. You don't see compromises that you used to see. what you see now is you have people on both ends going to extreme bases, and instead of saying, oh, we'll compromise, it's, oh, we'll push something through. Don't compromise, elect more of us, and we'll just push it through with a majority. The last major bipartisan social act was not passed in this century. What you see a lot, and that's you see the Senate, which is supposed to be the haven of debate and the haven of democracy. You see the Senate with the filibuster rule, they don't do anything because you need 60 votes, and no one is willing to take the chance and reach across the aisle to get the 60 votes. Now the talk is get rid of the filibuster instead of let's compromise across the aisle. And that's both sides saying, well, I don't want to compromise. I can only say this, and this. Compromising as we knew it in American politics, I don't think exists anymore.
Do you know what that last bipartisan social act was?
I think it was one of Clinton's. I believe it was one of Bill Clinton's crime bills.
Was that in early?
Passed in the 90s, I believe. The big one that I'm thinking of is Clinton in one of his State of the Unions wanted 10,000 more police officers, and that passed overwhelmingly with bipartisan support. If someone else knows of one earlier than that, let me know, because I'd like to believe that that's possible. But it's very hard to pass a bipartisan social change bill.
Why do you think like the turn occurred for this, I guess, extinction of bipartisanism inside the government?
I don't know. I think it has a lot to do with the primary process and who votes in a primary. A primary process, what we've seen, especially recently, is we've seen further and further to the extremes. You have Donald Trump playing to the extreme right. You have Bernie Sanders is an extreme left, but he's further left than a lot of Democrats were. And what happens is when you get supporters from both ideological ends of the spectrum. What can happen is it drives us so far too quickly that we can't see the good in the other.
Yeah.
And when you can't see the good in your other person, it's sad. I mean, look at what Justice Ginsburg, who just died, may she rest in peace, her best friend on the Supreme Court, Justice Scalia.
Oh.
There was a quote that I saw Scalia's son released after she died, and it was, his dad would always give Justice Ginsburg 2 dozen roses on her birthday. And a reporter at one time asked him, well, how many votes has that got you? And he laughed at the reporter. He goes, my friend, some things are far more important than votes on a court. Yeah. I mean, that's two ideological extremes. You have the Scalian conservative versus Ginsburg's progressive judicial views. And I mean, they were friends. I mean, how many people you think are still friends in Washington? I mean, it's just like, I'm going to do what I need to do to be in power. And I think social media has a lot to do with that too.
Actually,
Go ahead.
The disappearance of compromise is just because, obviously, there will never be a 50-50 split, like a perfect 50-50 split that'll be sustained for decades between Republicans and Democrats. And
Yep.
so every time one of them gets power, why would you need a compromise if you have majority? And so you could just literally push anything through.
We haven't had a super majority in the Senate though for a long time, and to push something through in the Senate should take a super majority.
I'm not really well versed in like a lot of the government and processes, so don't really have a lot to say on this. So I'm just gonna like push everything off to you, Grace.
Yeah, I mean it's complicated. What's interesting is another one, Russell, so in 2008, when the Republicans took back, no, 2010, pardon me, when the Republicans took back the House of Representatives, Barack Obama and John Boehner started meeting secretly to figure out the great bargain that they were going to strike. And it was going to be lowering entitlements, raising taxes, balancing the budget. And what happened is because of the new Tea Party caucus.
Who was John Boehner?
John Boehner was a former Speaker of the House.
From which side?
Republican Speaker of the House from Ohio.
Okay.
But yeah, so him and Obama had a deal, and it was fascinating because they had to meet in secret to do it, because of how scared Boehner was. Boehner was a new speaker, and he wasn't sure how much power he had over the Tea Party Republican caucus.
Yeah.
And so what you saw that they came up with the deal, and then the Tea Party caucus rejected it, which is the extreme of the which is further to the right of the regular Republican Party. So it's I don't know. I think the extreme polarization we'll see will make compromise go away, which will cause more extreme polarization, which will cause more anger.
Yeah. I didn't really get into like the whole structure of or like specific cases within the government because honestly, I'm not too well versed. My experience is limited to AP Gov.
Yep, same.
3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
But just generally, like I see when people have power, why not use it? Especially in the House, in the Senate, like where you literally affect millions, billions in America. So
yeah, it's interesting. They say that I think it's the stat last time I saw it said 80% of Americans would approve these basic changes. But the NRA, for example, common sense gun control. So like universal background checks. I think it has about, last time I looked, now this may have changed since I last looked, and the last time I looked was probably a month ago. The approval.
Totally off topic, but I saw some like infographic on abortion and how like Republicans and Democrats want to get rid of it, but they want to get rid of it in different ways. So
Yeah.
Republicans would rather like outlaw it and just ban it completely, and then Democrats would get rid of it by making it not even necessary anymore.
Exactly.
Just interesting to see the two extremes in will solve the same issue.
Yeah, it's fascinating, some of the extremes you can see. But like the common sense gun laws, most Americans support that. But what you get is the NRA is a very strong lobby presence. So what they'll do is if a gun control bill is being heard, they'll publish every committee member who's going to hear the bill. They'll publish where and when the bill will be heard if it's a local government issue. And they will have members call and write letters and say, don't support this. I won't vote for you if you support this. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's fascinating to me that this is a John Oliver quote, so I can't take credit for it. When he did his piece on the NRA, he said, there are more Planet Fitness members than the NRA. But the NRA understands how to use, now they're in a little bit more trouble because of scandals, but the NRA understands how to use their members in ways that in ways that other people can't. And I mean, I think that's important for Creighton. I think something that Creighton, I've been encouraged, is doing is a lot of vote stuff.
Yeah.
I know for a fact. I heard. I wasn't able to attend the die-in, unfortunately, but I heard one of the big things they said was vote, because if we vote, we'll be able to get change. That's the one way we have to do it. Vote and lobby.
I've seen that on multiple, like especially watching the NBA playoffs right now. It's really cool seeing all of the athletes promote social change on the back of their jerseys. And I don't know which player, but there's multiple that just say vote on the back. And it's relatively simple to do. It doesn't take long, but it shows the need that Americans need to exercise that right.
Yeah.
All right. So bringing this back to Creighton and their own personal experiences, like what are the type of experiences you guys had on campus or around campus or wherever you've been that have you feel like made you feel discriminated against or you think were racially charged? I know this could be pretty heavy topic, but I would love to hear your guys' own experiences.
I can go ahead and start with mine. So my first kind of like weird, discriminatory experience, I would say, began my freshman year during the election. I remember once 2016 when they announced how Trump won. I remember like some people in my dorm. I remember some dude running around Swanson Hall was like, the wall's going up, saying like Trump 2020. I don't know what else was said, but I remember in that moment I was like, whoa, like is this real? I just thought I felt kind of scared. I was like, dang, am I like, is someone gonna say anything? Is someone gonna go up to me or something? So it was like a weird day, but I did find support. But no matter what, though, I can't like. It was just a weird. I bet like, it was something that's like national, and like, I don't know, like, it was just definitely a weird first experience. I'm interested to see or hear what you guys.
Like that idea that a majority of Americans voted this guy in.
The majority actually didn't.
Well,
popular vote with Hillary won.
Popular vote Hillary won, but like even still, like the majority of electoral votes dictated that Trump should lead the nation. And the scary thing is he didn't have any prior political experience, so you really have no read on what he's capable of, what he's going to do. And so yeah, that's totally understandable, Efren.
Yeah, like I guess with the context of like my parents being immigrants, I definitely take those comments to home. It's just like, all right, like now, I mean, back then I felt more intimidated, but more now I'm like, all right, really, like I feel more now. It's more like infuriating. But luckily, I feel like it's not as common, especially with like how supportive I guess Creighton over. I guess that is one of like the plus sides like to Creighton. Like it is, they do try to advocate more. But they could continue to do more for sure. I mean,
yeah,
especially with like what's going on with like ICE and everything. Like, we can talk about that after like our experiences.
Yeah, it is difficult because it's not really their place to take a political stance. Like as welcome as it would be,
Yeah,
you have to compromise.
Yeah, I mean, to an extent, I think when it comes to like ICE and like their like sexual abuse allegation, I mean, not just allegations, but like evidence of that, like I think Creighton does a good job with like expressing their Jesuit values and like this is why we should care about it. I think Creighton has done a good job with like IFTJ and especially with the SCSJ. I think the SCSJ has given me a lot of experiences that have given me more knowledge about immigration and whatnot. And I think, yeah, like it's a like in this case, I feel like especially with like how immigrants are treated in like detention centers, it's not like a thing about immigration at that point. That's more of like a human rights issue where people are not getting what they need in those detention centers, or they're getting, their uterus is taken out. It's not okay.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I agree that the SCSJ, and I haven't had the chance to participate on an IFTJ trip, but just going on one of the service and justice trips, like it really exposed me to what's out there and all of the possibilities. And then like at the end of the trip, we're encouraged to write letters to senators and our local representatives to force change to happen. And I think that's really cool. It's like putting all of your experiences and exposures and memories and like actually putting it into action.
All right. So Russell, do you have any like experiences? Doesn't have to be on campus, but like things that you remember that stood out that made you feel uncomfortable and like in your own skin?
I would say not really. Nothing that stands out off the top of my head. But growing up, like the majority of my upbringing was like generally like Caucasian and Asian community. It was like maybe like 40% Caucasian, 40% Asian, and then the rest were other minorities. And so growing up, I didn't really get exposed to seeing anything wrong with that. But in high school, I went to a high school that was in like a lower income neighborhood. And so just seeing how different life was there, just seeing like people asking for money at stoplights and like people hanging out like, at gas stations or just like walking around, like you could tell there's a noticeable difference between like the way I was, or the environment I was raised in, and the environment that people in a lower income neighborhood was raised in. And I think that's what really helped me see that like I was living in a bubble for the 13 years before I reached 14 years before I reached high school. And ever since then, like I've wanted to continue to explore and expose myself to what else is out there.
All right. So for myself, I actually didn't start noticing like different ways people would, I guess, look at me or certain things they would say to me until I actually came to college. Because I'm from LA, and LA is a very diverse place, and it's very hard to find a racist or someone who discriminates in LA, just because of the fact that there are so many minorities that exist in there and so many different cultures that you can't really discriminate there. And all the people I grew up with, none of them really had anything against, I guess this is a very crude way to say it, but like didn't have anything against brown people or minorities. So I never really actually noticed anything until I came here, and it was just like the little things that happened whenever I came to like Nebraska or the Midwest. It'd be like walking into a place with mainly white people in it. Like you would feel a weird vibe when you walk in. Like you'll walk in, people would just like kind of look at me and be like, just like not really a side eye, but just like they look at me like I'm suspect.
I felt that before.
Yeah, it's like it's really noticeable now, and also like just standing in line sometimes at Gretna at our outlet mall, like people behind us in line will like say something under their breath, and my friend will like tell me about it. I'm like, oh, okay, well, it kind of makes sense. But it's like little stuff like that, and it's my first experience with it. I didn't know it, or actually wasn't paying attention. But I was with my family up in Montana because we were driving up to Glacier National Park, and we stopped in this little small town, asked for directions, and we're in this like little mall thing. I don't even know like where in Montana we were at. Well, my parents were saying that like people and like adults and teenagers both would like look at us and actually openly deride us for being Asian, because like in their sense Asian meant Chinese, so like they started making like Chinese noises, or they imitated, quote unquote imitated Chinese language at us. So that it's just like stuff like that. I've never been openly attacked for being brown or being not white, but it's just stuff like that. And like someone at Popeyes last fall break, I think it's like pretty much exactly a year ago now, like this random register or cashier at Popeyes, he was in high school, and ironically enough he was white, and he asked me like how things were at Creighton, like just that. And I asked him like I looked at him like, what do you mean? Because like I just wasn't expecting to be asked about Creighton. And he was like, yeah, I heard they're like kind of racist there. And I was like, oh shoot, yeah. So it's like this is a random person in Omaha asked me about like if Creighton was racist, and I wasn't like going to hop into like a philosophical debate at Popeyes, but like I just told him like it's just how it is, dude. I don't really know what to say. Like you'll meet these types of people like everywhere. You just kind of have to learn how to deal with it. And I know my answer was really, really half-assed, but it just made the most sense at the time, because oftentimes we're not expecting to be attacked with racism. You either lash out, you pull in, or you just kind of brush it off and say, I just kind of have to deal with it. Those are more of my experiences. I wouldn't necessarily with racism, because that's kind of extreme, but like with unintentionally prejudicial acts, I would say that. But on Creighton's campus, the only thing I can remember was like freshman year when the Latin Student Association, COLSA, they were doing I don't really know what it's called. It's when they line up with phones and they call people and they're like calling government officials.
Oh,
What is it? Telephone, phonathon. There we go. Whatever.
yeah.
They're doing that, and it was about the wall, or it was about immigrant rights or DACA.
Yeah.
Or like they were
Yeah.
considering getting rid of DACA, like the DACA certification. And someone put up like they paid, like this is just absurd to me. They paid for a Snapchat filter, like in our student center where the phonathon was going on, that said build that wall, and they had like the little wall thing. They paid for it and designed it. I was like, wow, they really went to some effort to do this. So that's the main thing I remember on Creighton's campus that happened.
Dang.
And
That's dark.
of course with the junior, I forgot his name already, because this happened in the beginning of the semester. The junior who called the student at University of Lincoln, Nebraska, a half-breed. That was the thing that happened more recently. But actually, to me directly, I haven't really had a lot of experience on actual Creighton's campus.
Was that on Lincoln's campus or Creighton's campus?
No, a Creighton junior said that he messaged,
Oh.
a Creighton junior messaged that dude's girlfriend,
Yeah.
and he said like, that's a nice half-breed boyfriend you got
Oh,
there.
yeah.
And
I
so
remember.
yeah,
I forgot his name too, but
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was a UNL student. That
was a Lincoln student.
Yeah, and I don't know. I feel like it's crazy to think about like what's publicized, or like what places will do to kind of protect their image in some way. Because like, I mean, aside from image, it's also kind of like a moral thing, or like a
Responsibility.
they're kind of like put out there. They're like they kind of do have to make a response, and like, would you think they would have made a response if it didn't get like so big put out there? Like, what if Creighton really cared? Like.
They would just sweep it under the rug, like, okay, Nebraska hasn't heard about it. Public, like our alumni, donors, they haven't heard about it. We don't need to make a statement.
That sucks. I mean, it sucks because it's like a system that just isn't like meant to like best serve us, like best serve the students directly.
Is like, I think public safety has been really transparent about like all of the different cases or like threats on campus. And while it's more like direct because it's our personal safety, they've been super transparent about like threats on campus and like reports about like burglary or like protests or whatever.
Right.
And if Creighton was a little bit more transparent like that, in that sense, where they told us about everything going on, I think I would feel like I could rest more easy.
Yeah. Because I don't know.
The problem with that is I think legally they can't. Like, I think legally they can't say, hey, we disciplined X student for Y reason.
Gotcha.
I think you get into legal issues there, because I think all of us get annoyed by the seemingly lack of transparency that Creighton has.
Okay.
And I guess I could share another experience, and this is, I mean, I guess this could be it's not a hot topic, but I think it's kind of interesting because I wouldn't have ever like thought to experience like any kind of, and this was unintentional. Like, I'm not like as bothered by it now, but I know in that moment I kind of was. But like, I experienced, I guess, some kind of way, like it wasn't, no, I don't know what to call it, but it was just kind of like, what is it called? Those like mini, not mini, but they're small microaggressions. There you go. I guess it was a little bit of a microaggression because I was triggered. I was just like, hey, that's not. I don't know. I was like, I don't know, Chief. I don't know about that one. But it was we had a project and it involved being in South Omaha, and on our rubric or like somewhere on like our grading sheet, the professor had put, or he labeled, the professor labeled the project South Omaha, the hood, in quotes. And, you know, like most people, what do you associate the hood with? You know, and so I saw that, I was like, yeah. I was like, I don't know about this one, Chief. I was like,
Makes
it's,
you a little uncomfortable.
huh?
It makes you a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah. Because, I mean, I did talk to him after, and we you know, like, we saw, you know, we came, we're like, all right, I feel like I was kind of understanding. I was like, I know you're a pretty cool guy. You know, I know you did not mean bad. And, but at the end of the day, I'm like, I want to, like, I guess, like, let's not say that, you know? And it definitely took a lot for me to kind of, like, do that myself.
It's good that he had that discussion with you and that you pursued that discussion rather than, I'm guessing he was amenable to those changes, like your perspective, but.
Yeah, for sure. But, you know, like, and that's the thing, you know, like, that little things can happen like that. And, you know, someone, I think I've heard it of experiences of other people. I don't know if at Creighton, you know, but other people dealing with professors on tenure.
Yeah.
And they can't, like, leave if they say something like, I don't know why I'm reminded about that professor from, like, summer. I forgot what he said, but, like, he got some heat about what he made on Twitter. Like, I remember, so I remember after, like, that Creighton student that made that comment about the Lincoln guy, like, one of the critiques or someone, like, was like, another dude was trying to respond with, like, oh, like, they didn't do anything for, like, are they going to treat this dude, are they going to do anything about the professor that made that comment in the summer or something? And I don't know what happened to that professor or anything, but I remember he did make a statement.
Yeah, that was my RSP advisor who said that. Nothing happened to him. He's actually on tenure. Yeah.
But
yeah, one of my favorite people on campus, and yeah,
that's awesome.
there is a two-sided process to actually determining what deserves to be punished or not.
Yeah.
And oftentimes it does kind of become like it does exist in a gray area.
Yeah, and I think those two cases were different. You know, one's like a direct, like, discriminatory remark, and then the other one was more of an opinion, not like targeting anyone at all, but more of like a system of like, this is like what is highly related with what's going on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, what do you guys think that, and like this is a question to ourselves, what do you think that SLB could do to, you can't really make the situation better with just one organization, but what do you think that SLB could do to actually educate more people about our own experiences and also the experiences of the people outside of Omaha, so that you don't keep them in a bubble, that you expand the reality to basically all of the US or even the whole world if you feel like it.
Okay. I mean, baby steps.
Yep.
And hopefully this podcast serves that purpose in putting our experiences into a digital medium.
Yeah, but for something physical, like if it wasn't Corona,
yeah,
like what would you do on campus to change the situation?
I think just more overall support for like the multicultural orgs. You know, I guess I've seen a little bit more of it. I have seen the baby steps, and that's appreciable, but there are more strides we can make. You know, for example, like I think the CIC is one of the best places that you could go to support, you know, what we're doing. And I think lately there has been, you know, I think about the Dia de los Muertos event that we had last year, and, you know, like for the most part, the support we get with Las Mañanitas for COSA, but, you know, even with the die-in, like more of these like social movements or like, yeah, like, of course, yeah, no, I think support of these social movements, because these are affecting like specific populations. You know, if it's not COSA, then like what's going on with their die-in, like there's a lot that COSA can talk about too, with everything that's going on like with immigration and like the way immigrants are treated within detention centers, because it's more than a political statement or a political like movement. There are human social issues, you know, and I think Creighton should continue to like do this and support organizations like ourselves and other, like, embrace the more multicultural aspects of everyone here, you know?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
Yeah,
sorry. Go ahead, Grayson.
I think education too has to be really important, because if you tell people facts, it's harder to justify facts in your head. It's easier, I think, if for someone who doesn't want to know, they can kind of disregard a protest as that's just a protest. But if we really focus on education and educating people, once you learn something, it's kind of hard to not let that affect you. So I think Creighton really could be education focused. I know there's a Kingfisher Institute presentation tomorrow that Dr. Christopher Witt, Vice Provost for Institutional Diversity, is leading tomorrow. So I think things like that, just education opportunities, because I think once people learn about things, people change a lot. So
Yeah.
I think education is probably what we could do a lot of.
Yeah, I think definitely more support. Like the SCSJ definitely deserves so much support of like what they do, because I think what they do is definitely life changing for a lot of people. For students who have never like seen some of the disparities out there. I think especially when it comes to like service trips, like they really do their best to show it out in the best way that they can for you to live with like to live in that moment, to stand in solidarity with the people that are being affected by like these things going on. And so like I don't know why I thought maybe it made me think about an idea of like maybe like a course that like students should take about going over, I don't know, like a lot of like human right movements, or like I don't know, something that like demonstrates the value of like how governments can oppress certain groups of people and why we should care, even if it doesn't affect us.
I think that's kind of the purpose of a liberal arts education, actually. It's so that we get exposed to philosophy and theology, and those social issues are often brought up in those classes as we take.
That's true. Yeah.
Okay, so what do you think SLB should do? Just SLB, not like campus. Like how do we offer support to others? How do we form these events, or what events would you decide to do?
I think continuing discussion, that would probably be like what I would see as the most impactful, and bringing speakers in from around Omaha or around Nebraska just to continue that debate and creating something regular so that people continue to get exposed. I think like a voter registration event, or like some sort of awareness for that would also be pretty helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, I think some presentations, or I don't know, some way to like make some of like the information more like accessible, or some of the education more like easier to manage. Like I think I like seeing a lot of like not one page summaries, but like a lot of like visuals of like how to like
Flyers.
like how to tell if you're like voted, like the value of voting and like how different systems work and whatnot. So I think, because I mean, some of the stuff, as much as like these things are important, it definitely does take time to like research like everything that's going on, or like the more details of like government and whatnot. Like I definitely only have AP Gov on my like courses that give me like what I need to know, but everything I've learned about government has been like through my own experiences and out of my own way through like service trips and other involvements like that.
What do you think, Grayson?
I really liked what you said about just continuing the education process. I think education is how we solve a lot of issues that we face. So I really like the idea of continuing the education process.
I think we have like a platform to give voices. I guess we're using our voices now to say what we feel and like think. And I think having this.
Yeah, but it shouldn't stop here, clearly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Continue to use our platform is basically the question, rather than.
One event that I think we should do. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. I'm done.
I was thinking we should. Creighton has an immigration clinic, and I really think we should put an undergrad case study together on different cases. You can change names, change stories enough of people who have come to the immigration clinic, because I think anything that can be done to shatter perceptions, I think would be important. So maybe a presentation, or we get like a wall and Scott that just posts pictures, people's actual stories, because it's easy to have a picture in your head and disregard the picture in your head. it's a lot harder to disregard a person in your head.
For sure.
It's true.
Yeah.
What would you say to that, Patrick?
Yeah, for myself, that sounds like a great idea. For myself, I would actually, if like COVID wasn't a factor, I would love to host like presentations or what is it called? Panel discussions. Panel discussions with people on campus, like faculty members on campus, about their experiences with discrimination.
I think one with Kwasa would be really interesting.
Yeah, and we could also do it with AK Psi, since they're the other. Would you refer to them as a multicultural fraternity, or just divide that? Not AK Psi.
We should do
What? Noobs. Not AK Psi. Kappa Alpha Psi.
we should do poetry.
Yeah, we could do that. And I don't know how to reach the people who aren't willing to listen.
Yeah.
Because that's the hardest part about it. But honestly, advocating for maybe instead of like taking 3 philosophy or theology classes, you're required to take a class in social justice.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about earlier too.
There is an oversaturation of philosophy and theology. Like, yes, we're a Jesuit institution, but like,
yeah,
come on.
In the modern day and age, like
Bro.
it's important to learn about social justice.
Yeah, and I would love it if they make juniors take that, because I don't think freshmen would be very receptive to this.
Yeah.
You would have to have everyone take it later in their college career, and it'll be interesting to see how you can actually propose that, because I would love to actually talk to someone about this.
Would that be like the student senates? 'Cause I think they're in charge of changing curriculum.
No, you'd have to talk to Dr. Graham, who's head of the Modus Corps.
You need to talk to the deans and him.
Okay.
But it would be like, you'll have to
That
have
would
like
be
a
interesting.
full-on template about like what will be taught, how it will be structured. But I do believe that that is the easiest way to reach the whole campus population.
Yeah.
I don't really know how you'd fit it in with with nursing students, because their schedule is pretty packed and set and structured. But at least to the business school and the College of Arts and Sciences, I feel like this is really, really, really important to do. And I feel like does have a good space to actually propose that.
Yeah.
So we can. This obviously won't happen anytime near or anytime soon, but I think just like opening that discussion to doing it and maybe creating just the foundation and the groundwork for it would be beneficial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and
Productive.
since we're we're gonna wrap things up. The one last thing I'd like to discuss is break the molds of the traditional understanding of a fraternity. How can you get someone outside of Creighton who doesn't understand what SLB is to respond to your email or to actually talk to you when you tell them you are a fraternity? Because it is very hard, and there's a lot of criticism going against Greek life, especially with a lot of organizations getting suspended or getting kicked off campus, either due to hazing, drinking, anything else, or even violations of COVID guidelines. So everything is against us. So how do you think you would push this? Because like even pushing a fraternity's podcast is pretty difficult.
Yeah.
So how would you push it?
I would probably say like build a resume in saying like these are the events we've supported, these are the events we've held on campus. We do take this matter very seriously, and we'd love to have your support as well. Because if it was just a cold call like, hey, we'd love to have you, like it doesn't really mean much.
Mm-hmm.
But if we can show that like, oh, we've held 3 events here and we've organized such and such, like they'd be more receptive, like, oh, okay, these guys actually care about what we want to do, and so like they'd be more open to a partnership.
Do you guys have any comments on this?
I think too, it's the standards that Creighton needs to hold their fraternities to, and there needs to be transparent standards that apply to everyone, and I think that could really help.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. I don't know. I think just more mandatory like trainings on like a lot of like, or educations like about, like sex and drug use, or like a lot of these things that we talk about that like are really taboo with like for Greek life and fraternity life. And so I think more, some of the stuff like we're doing like consent 101, like I think those trainings and those experiences are valuable because I think Greek life particularly lives in like a weird, unique like subculture of college life, and it's kind of plagued with a lot of things like nationwide. And I think just education and prevention is the best way to kind of like go about any kind of like challenge or thing that kind of is recurring in a certain like culture, I guess.
Gotcha.
Yep.
All right. So that basically wraps up this podcast. I appreciate everyone for tuning in and for showing your support to us. It did take a while to get this going. I know some of you might have forgotten that I did release that video on Instagram and Facebook. So I apologize for my lack of communication and my slowness. But we finally got it going. Hopefully we'll be able to do this weekly, but you never know because college does have kind of a fluctuating schedule, especially with COVID and classes we don't really know what's going to happen with this. So we'll be hopefully we'll be back next week. And I want to discuss actually like the role SLB has played in our own lives. So we'll be moving away from mainly social justice. It will still be included because a lot of us did join for that reason. But I want to mainly talk about what SLB actually means to us, so you guys understand our journeys and our paths. And I'll be inviting alumni to that too. So hopefully we'll be able to get a couple of them on this call as well. So thank you all for tuning in, and good luck with your studies or your life, your job, your work, your workouts, whatever. Good luck. Bye.
Yeah.